Jeremy,
All right, are we live?
yes, we are live now.
We're not live.
All right, we are
We're
live?
live now.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna call the meeting of the Public Safety Committee together at 2 o'clock on May 21st of 2021. And Councilmember Mitchell, would you lead us in a moment of silence or a prayer, please?
Okay, let's bow our head. Heavenly Father, as we come here to do the business for the city of Charleston, let us all be vigilant in what we are here to do and making things safe for everyone in the city of Charleston, even our young people. And that's why we're here today. And hope that everyone would agree to what we are doing. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, you all should have a copy of the minutes from our last meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any changes or modifications to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. We have two ordinances that are up for consideration. One is dealing with restrictions on locations of these portable vending machines. Is Steve Rumlin on the phone with us?
Councilmember Shade, this is Susan.
Are you
Julia.
handling this, Susan?
Julia's going to handle this one. I'll handle with the help of the police department the second one. But I also wanted to request that at the end of the meeting, before we adjourn, I'd ask for a motion to add a matter to the agenda, requesting legal advice on a matter. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's, Julia, go ahead and lead us on the first item, please.
Sure. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry we're here on a Friday afternoon, but this is one of two items we needed to address with the Public Safety Committee. So after the incidents on King Street several weeks ago, the police department was looking into ways to control crowd, or to look into crowd management after late hours, after midnight in the central business district of the city. Mostly around King Street where all the activity occurred. And one of the things we discovered was that there are mobile food vendors along King Street that are situated on private property under a lease agreement with a private property owner. And if you look at our ordinances, we don't address any situation like this with a mobile food vendor on private property. We only address mobile food vendors on city-owned property. So what this is an amendment to that particular ordinance to add mobile food vendors operating on private property so that we can control the hours of operation. Specifically, we're looking to shut them down at 1:30 in the morning when the bars are letting out to prevent crowd buildup on the area of King Street. So that's what's before you today.
These are these food trucks we're talking about mainly, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. With that being in mind, I'll entertain a motion to
Julia?
adopt.
Well, I'm sorry,
well,
Julia.
one second. I do want to ask before you guys make a motion, we'd like to add a friendly amendment to a typo that was in this actual ordinance, specifically section little d. We'd like it to read, no mobile food vendor shall operate outside the hours of 8 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. So I'd ask that you move to adopt it as amended.
And so we'll make sure that we're on the same page.
Yes, sir.
That is where on item, I'm looking at my copy now, on item D, you said?
Little d, yes.
D as in David?
D as in David.
Where is that? Okay, is that on the first, second, third page?
So
Top?
correct. It's under section big B, vending of food, drink, and reading material within the central business district. And then little d, right now it says a mobile food vendor may operate outside the hours of 8 a.m. to no later than 1:30 a.m. We'd like it to read, no mobile food vendor shall operate outside the hours of 8 a.m. to 1:30 a.m.
I'm just trying to catch up with you, Julia. I'm sorry.
Councilmember, it's on the second from last page, I believe.
Yeah, okay. Got it. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to accept this ordinance as amended. Is there a second?
The second,
Okay.
but
That
I'm
was
gonna ask a question.
Okay. so Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes, I want to ask a question. Will this also pertain to those mobile units that have what they call liquor on it that they sell?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
okay.
And I have a question as well.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Julia, would this also apply to the folks that just have carts? They're not like a truck, but they just have a cart?
Right now, we have mobile food vendor vehicle defined as self-contained motorized vehicle equipment. So I don't think it would necessarily cover a push cart.
No.
So we can certainly amend that as we go along this process to include those.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
To include,
Yes, sir.
amend it to include non-motorized vending carts as well?
All right, so Julia, where would that fall under what section to accommodate the mayor's motion?
It would be under little section F as in Frank, where we've defined the mobile food vending vehicle.
You need a roadmap for this thing.
well,
Certainly do.
Another question.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I mean, we need to put that amendment in there because about 90% of the food vendor services along King Street, particularly at night, are not vehicles. They're the carts. So we've got to put that in there.
Yeah. Sounds like someone's having a martini.
No, somebody just made a putt. I'm sitting on the 18th green.
All right, so is there a second?
One more question.
To the,
Another question.
Well, is there a question before we do the amendment,
Yes,
or you want to ask a question?
No, I have
Go ahead.
Councilmember Mitchell has a question.
I don't have
Yeah, got it.
I don't have a problem with the amendment, but I want to ask one question to Julie. Why do we have it from 1:30 instead of 1 o'clock?
I think that was just a discretionary decision. It can be amended to whatever council sees fit.
Julia, I think that's when the most of the bars start doing last call at 1:30, and they're trying to get people out before they close at 2. And the goal was to try to coordinate the that with the last call, so that when they leave the bars at 1:30, they don't congregate on the street at the food vendors.
Excellent point, Rick. My apologies. Yes, the soft closing for bars right now per our ordinance is 1:30.
Right.
So technically that's when people will be pushing out. So the goal is to try and get those wrapped up before people start congregating in the streets.
And that's why I was asking why wouldn't it be 1 o'clock? Because the bars is 1:30.
Mhm.
That means if 1 o'clock, that means they would have to stop 30 minutes prior to, and they'll be out of the way, so to speak, by 1:30. They'll be moving on when the bars be letting out too. That's why I was asking about 1 o'clock instead of 1:30 for them. Just a question I was asking.
Do you want to amend that as well to make it 1 o'clock?
I would like to amend it to 1 o'clock.
All right. So wait a minute. We make sure we're procedurally correct here.
If
We've
we
got an
can-
amendment to add non-motorized carts. Make sure that section D says not, and then we have this motion to amend it from 1:30 to 1 o'clock. So
Correct.
can we just consolidate all three of those amendments as to one amendment?
Well,
Yes,
we'll
I
accept them all
think you
together.
voted on the first one already, correct? The change.
Yes, we already have a motion for a change
All right.
for D.
Okay, so is a motion on the D first, and then the non-movable carts, the non-motorized carts?
Okay,
All right, let's take this out one at a time.
right.
Let's vote on the
think that's
section
better.
D first.
There
Okay,
you go.
is all those in favor of amending section D to include the word not, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, ayes have it. Second motion, do we have a second on the motion to amend to include non-motorized carts? I
Second.
need a second. All right. Any further questions on non-motorized carts amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the second amendment to include non-motorized, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. third amendment is a motion to change the closing time from 1:30 to 1 o'clock. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion about changing that hour? Seeing none, all those in favor of change the third amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, I hope you got all those straight.
Yes, we have it.
Okay, beautiful. All right. I know we have Chief Courier. Are you still with us, Chief?
Don't we have,
Chief Courier?
don't we have to adopt?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right. Is there anything that you wanted to add to this? I know we had talked earlier about this. And then anybody from the police department wanted to add anything before we move on to the other item?
I will defer to Chief Jalazda, who is on the line. I know he's been dealing with the food carts.
Okay. Chief, anything else? Chief Mike?
Sir, I just asked for an opportunity to work with legal to address any other language items, just a few cleanup items to make sure we're consistent with our other permits. We already have a mobile
Okay.
food vendor permit that's out there, and to make sure we don't inadvertently create any other conflicts.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd point out is under B1A, the language flips back to mobile food truck. And I think we probably ought to make sure it is consistent with mobile food vendor throughout the document. Because the truck doesn't necessarily have to be a vehicle. We're running into tents, tables, and trailers. So mobile food vendor is really kind of the generic, all-inclusive terminology we've been using.
Okay.
Good point. Let's
Okay.
make consistent. Excellent point.
All right.
The only other thing I would ask you to consider is under that section with B1A about the individuals producing paperwork and a permission that the operator was allowed to be within 250 feet of the restaurant. That's really going to be difficult for people to enforce on the street. So I'm not sure how we can really address that and expect them to have a signed letter from a business owner saying they can violate that 250-foot provision. I really think that's going to be a conflict we're going to create for those trying to enforce this on the street.
So you would prefer that we take the 250 out and just say from the door of the lawfully, how would you propose that to read?
Well, just at first read, I would recommend that we either have a restriction or we don't. So maybe it's like the others with church and I think a residential neighborhood, maybe it's 100-foot period. And we don't get into it's 250 unless you have a letter. Because I think that can get really dicey trying to deal with late at night.
All right, so you would want B1A to eliminate 250 completely
100.
and change it to 100?
That's just a thought. It currently says 250. If you want to amend the distance and then perhaps not allow for a exception.
So Councilmember Shade, it has language in there that says if the restaurant basically gives permission to the food truck vendor, the vendor can operate within that 250-foot zone. Is that right, Mike? And so you're just saying that's going to be hard to enforce on the streets.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we eliminate A altogether? That's what I'm trying to figure out, how to clarify that.
Well, I think that was put in there. And again, this tracks something that Greenville did. I think it was put in there initially because we heard that a lot of the brick and mortar folks didn't appreciate the mobile food vendors being near their businesses for various reasons. So, I mean, we could do an all out, 100-foot prohibition. Go ahead.
Can I ask, we didn't have this provision before, did we? Because literally,
No.
I can't think of one of those vendors that wouldn't be within 250 feet of a restaurant. Of course, they could go out and get permission and all like that, but we're not doing that now, correct?
Correct.
No,
We're
sir.
not.
And again, I think this came, we were looking at the Greenville ordinance that's been very successful. And I think probably the genesis of this is primarily the competition factor.
I haven't been hearing a complaint about that. The main purpose here is the time of operation and to reduce the gathering that's been occurring after 2 o'clock in the morning. Mike, you or anybody else been hearing complaints just about them being there at all in their locations?
I personally have not received any complaints, but I do think it is a valid concern. Just mobile food industry in general, we've had concerns from brick and mortars and the ability of food trucks to operate too close to their business, but not specifically related to what's been going on recently on King Street.
Okay.
But why don't we keep it the way it is right now, and we can revisit this in 30 days, see what happens with this.
We can also change
Okay.
tonight. Councilmember Seekings, have you heard anybody on this matter or have any thoughts?
I think he dropped off of the call.
Oh,
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah,
got
why don't we just keep it in here for now, and between now and Tuesday, we can amend it before then in front of full council if we have to do that as well. Let's keep B1A as is, and then if we can talk about it some more, if we need to amend it at full council, we'll do that.
Do you
Okay.
mind if we reduce it to 100 feet?
Hello?
I was just asking if y'all minded if we reduce it to 100 feet to it. I mean, there's so many restaurants up there that it becomes pretty restrictive when you put that on them, I think.
Yep.
I'm not,
Why don't you make a motion to change B1A from 250 to 100? And then what was the other motion to change for mobile food vendor? Is that right?
yeah,
Mobile food truck to mobile food vendor.
okay.
All right,
I would like to add another amendment to change all references from mobile food vehicles or vendor vehicles just to mobile food vendors.
Okay.
And to
All right,
also
and
reduce the number of feet in B1A to 100 feet from the door of a lawfully established eating establishment.
I just seconded that amendment.
Second.
Any questions about this? Any further discussion? All right, we'll call for the question. All those in favor of this added amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. All right. Now, can we move on to item number 4?
Yep.
All right. And who's going to handle item number 4?
Councilmember Shade, I can start, and then I would ask for
All right.
some additional information from the police department. But
All right.
this is fairly straightforward. It is a proposed ordinance to establish a youth curfew, again, in just the central business district. It's another tool that the police department and the city is looking at to assist in responding to what has happened over the past few weeks there. This curfew, which is modeled after Columbia's, applies to children or youth under the age of 17. And basically, it would be unlawful for the juvenile to remain in a public place, to remain in a motor vehicle that's parked, or to remain on a premises of a bar or restaurant, corner store within the central business district after 12 and before 6. Now, there's some other prohibitions with it, but there are exceptions, and the exception is if a parent or person responsible for the juvenile is with them, if the juvenile is engaged in employment or is returning to or from his home or other lawful activity, and or if the juvenile is attending an activity sponsored by school, church, civic organizations, things of that matter. I think the police can speak to why it's thought that this would be an effective tool. I think the really easy rationale is that they've seen children very young who basically did not need to be on the streets past midnight. But I'll turn it over to anyone from the police. I don't know, Greg or whom would like to speak to this issue.
So is there somebody from the police department who can enlighten us on this? Hello?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Someone is supposed to be there. The chief said someone was going to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lieutenant McLaughlin. Let me see if I can-
Is he, Lieutenant, are you available? Well, I've certainly talked to the chief about this numerous of times when this was being discussed. I'm comfortable with this, and I'll entertain a motion that we adopt item number 4. Is there a second? Is there a motion on the floor for that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I
Is
have
there any further? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Councilmember Mitchell.
I spoke to the chief. I spoke to the chief earlier, and I was told him we have to make sure that we put this out to let people know exactly what it's all about, because we don't want the ACLU to be coming after us for something else and talking about, discrimination or whatever the case may be. So he said, yeah, it's a good idea. He said he never thought about that, but I know it could happen because he knows that I'm out there all the time and I hear things. So you have to be very mindful of that. But I don't have a problem with the ordinance itself, but just have to be mindful of that. If it comes through, we'll be able to answer those questions, and we're doing it only for safety of our young people in the community and trying to keep them safe and keep everybody else safe. So we have to be ready if that comes forward.
Okay. I think it's a good idea as well. And if this works fine, if we have to amend it later or rescind it later, we could address that as well. But I think the whole purpose of this thing is to address what happened a couple of weeks ago and to address future issues. Particularly when the summer starts rolling around, this may become more of a problem. So I welcome this ordinance. I think we've got a motion and a second. Are there any other discussions or questions at this point? Okay, I don't hear any. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed?
One more question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I know it's already been approved, but what the age we're going to start from 16 and under or 17 and under? That's what I wanted to ask.
Under 17. So
Yeah, that's 17 is the legal definition of a minor.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
So 16 and below, I guess.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry. I've been on the whole time. This is Lieutenant McLaughlin. I just couldn't get myself off mute.
Oh.
No.
We're glad to have you. All right, let me finish with the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, none. The motion carries. Lieutenant, anything you want to add? We voted on it. I think we understand what we're trying to accomplish here, and I think this gives you another tool to address those issues that we've been wrestling with on King Street.
Yeah, I think it has a lot of potential because right now, if you have people that are involved and they're going around and they're doing things you might not want them to be doing, we don't have anything to do with them if there's no offense. Whereas this will give us an option to get out with them and, encourage them to leave. If we have to do further action, that we have the option of handling them to their parents. And just with how many people have been involved lately from different, areas of the city, sometimes you need a good way to split like a group off that doesn't like another group. But there's no legal method per se. Whereas this would give us, well, neither of you groups should be out here because, we have the curfew in place. And in light of the last couple of events, between shootings, stabbings, and we caught juveniles in a car with, 4 guns, we've just kind of had an uptick. And I think this would be a great option to help us have additional tools and a way of kind of handling some things we need to handle.
All right. Thank you for chiming in on that, Lieutenant. Appreciate the added insight.
I apologize that it was a little late.
That's okay.
Mr. Chairman, let me ask Lieutenant McLaughlin a question.
Yes,
Lieutenant,
sir.
can you confirm that at least some of those incidents that you just mentioned, possession of guns and part of the violence that occurred week before last were by individuals who were 16 and under?
The individuals with the gun that I was speaking of, there was a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, and two 17-year-olds in the car. We had an incident at 63 Mary Street. The victim was 17 years old, and other people in the crowd were also teenagers. So it's kind of a borderline. We've got ranging from 15 to 18 in the problem that we've had recently. So, the curfew with people 16 and under won't get everybody, but it would at least give us something to start towards, getting a handle on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for asking that question. Okay. Any further discussion? Any further comments on it? The motion is passed, correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, Susan asked us to consider adding an item to the agenda. Would that require us to go into executive session?
Yes, sir. We would like I'm getting a little feedback there. I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. So we'd like a motion to add a matter to the agenda to receive legal advice related to construction of the fire station 11. We do have an urgent timing matter, so we would ask that there be a motion to go into executive session, which would require a 2/3 vote to add this matter to the agenda.
Motion that we go into executive session.
Second.
All right, Susan, and would that need to be everyone here?
Yes, except for Lieutenant Patrick, McLaughlin, if he doesn't want to join us, but he's welcome to if he'd like.
So how are you going to do this, Bethany? You just go knock people off, or we have to go to another room?
Yes, I'm gonna place you all in a breakout room. Give me 1 second to stop the YouTube.
Y'all, hold on. Y'all need to, this is Jennifer. Y'all need to vote. There is a motion.
Okay. Hold on, one thing at a time. There's a motion to add this to the agenda, and we need a 2/3 vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right. I'll entertain a motion that now we go into executive session. Is there a motion?
It was.
There was.
And we had to take care of the first motion first.
So
Adding
moved.
it to the agenda. Okay. All right.
Second.
Is there second? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We'll now go